Welcome to another week on the Just Basketball Show. I am Brendon Kleen. That is Chris Manning. Thank you for joining us. The basketball has been great, so we are very thrilled to be here with all of our listeners. Make sure to follow us on social media wherever you are. We are TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, if you're finding the show for the first time, hit that follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. 5 stars, a nice rating, a nice review would do a lot as well. We're going to be talking about NBA dark horses on today's show. But before that, we have a ton of games and a little bit of news to get into. So, Chris, actually, I have a little bit of a fun story, if you'll allow. We have a busy show, but I had an awesome experience this weekend. My high school was in the state championship game, and they have 2 guys who might be top 3 NBA draft picks. So I had a little bit of pride. I drove like an hour from my house to go watch this game. They just blew out the opposing team. But my little tiny high school, I was like the 5th graduating class, and now they have some NBA players on their team. And I was like, it's a little sentimental, but it was also very cool because I got to see talented dudes in Arizona, which is not a powerhouse normally.
Well, shout out the names. Give us some names.
Yeah, so Jonathan Gavoni on ESPN did his top 10 mock draft for 2024, which got a lot of attention because of Bronny James.
Which in
conversation for a different day.
We didn't talk about that, but I am looking forward to future talking about Bronny and things I would do to like get Bronny and also like maybe get LeBron James on my basketball team for a year, even if he's 40 years old.
Yeah. I think you in Cleveland have maybe an inside track on that others do not. But
just trade all of the future seconds and lots of Rocket Mortgage like loose capital and let's go. Like let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. But number 2 on that mock draft was Cody Williams, who is the brother of Jalen Williams from the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's supposed to go number 2. He was on this team.
Which Jalen Williams? We have to specify.
Yeah, exactly. The J-Dub, the one that doesn't have a Y in his name, the better one, the one with the bigger hair, although they both have big hair.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's not like that, though. He's not like big and bulky like Jalen is. He's more of like a Jaden McDaniels type.
Okay.
Not gonna lie, I don't want to be the like I watch one guy's prospect tape and now I know where he should be drafted person, because that's always the most fun with basketball, but didn't really see number 2 overall pick in that game. Okay, but the biggest one, Koa Pete. Remember this name, Koa Pete. This dude is a sophomore, 6'8". He won MVP of this game. He was 3 times the athlete of anybody else on this court. And apparently the 2026 draft class, yes, we're doing that, is like one for the ages. Carlos Boozer's son is in this, and then this guy Koa Pete, and then there's a 3rd kid named Cooper Flagg. But keep that name in mind because this dude's a freak. I wouldn't be surprised if he transfers and I never get to see him in Arizona again. He goes to some prep school.
Sure.
But man, he's like 6'8". He's like Jabari Parker already, is kind of like the vibe.
Well, like Jabari Parker, it's like a very loaded thing. Like obviously like a high draft pick, but
Sure.
like, maybe didn't like work out in the way you would have hoped. But that's really cool. That I'm
But
happy.
in high school and college,
Yeah. Awesome
dude
player.
was a freak.
Yeah, I'm happy for you that your high school gets this. Like I don't think there will ever be a athlete like that where I went to school. There will be guys in the area because like there's like a very large like Catholic private high school contingent of very good sports teams in the area. Like a ton of kids that like play football at St. Ed's and like go play at Ohio State or like wrestle and like go win like national titles in college as wrestlers and stuff. And some basketball play like Terry Rozier, obviously. There's like some other guys from the area and like maybe there's like another Saint St. Mary kid. There's like one in the league right now, like from the post LeBron era. But yeah, nothing quite like that. I'm jealous of that. Like there's nothing
what's
more.
hilarious is I went to a public school, like out in the like very far reaches where it was basically like farmland around me when I went to school. Like not even the suburbs, but like the boondocks type of thing, because that's just where I was like zoned to go to high school, and Arizona's so sprawling.
There's
so
a
this
joke.
is not like I went to Catholic school and I'm out here like, yeah, look at that, crazy, huh? No, like I went to a very small public school. It just grew. Kids just like, there's so many kids there now. Eventually you're going to get talent.
Brent, I'm texting you something that I don't want to say in the air, but just tell me if that's accurate or not, and then we'll move on.
You're right.
Okay.
You're right.
Okay.
It is a county that would be accurately described the way that you just texted it to me. You saw some soccer this weekend. I don't want to make it all about my weekend. How was the soccer?
Tottenham is incredibly disappointing. Just lots.
I meant the game you went to more so than anything else.
So the Columbus Crew are tons of fun. MLS is great. It's Brennan. It's amazing. And I think this is regardless of soccer or basketball or any sport that is built on constant motion. I think the best teams in 2023 and the teams that are at the very least the most fun to watch are willing to push the ball forward and try to do stuff with the ball and not just maintain possession or be very risk adverse. The Crew weren't exactly just open season just whipping stuff around everywhere. You could have argued they couldn't have even been more aggressive, but they transitioned from Caleb Porter, who once could have been the national team head coach and should not be now. Jim Curlin for U.S. national team coach. I want to have that on the record. And they went to Wilfred Nancy, who was the coach of CF Montreal before this, and it's the system is just give it it's so fun. Crew games are a lot of fun. I recommend if you can go to some MLS, but also this is a bet.
Shouts to new Bucks owner Jimmy Haslam. New Bucks minority owner. That'll be the basketball tie-in. But Chris, a game just wrapped up that we got to talk about, which is
incredible.
We have two games that I think have a claim to being the best of the season, and they happen both on ABC back-to-back nights. The basketball, as I said at the top of the show, was very, very good this season, or this weekend. 130-126, Suns beat the Mavs. I just yapped about this game for 40 minutes straight on Locked On Suns. So I want to hear what you thought watching it as somebody who had a lot less emotional investment. I told my wife this season is going to kill me at one point watching this game. So I probably am coming at it a little more heated than you. What did you think, though?
So, number one, I want to just say, I think it's great that these teams, clearly, or at least, Booker and Luka are clearly annoyed with each other. I think that is great. I think how this game ends, which is Luka shoved off and didn't get the call because he knows he's not going to get called for it in that moment. He absolutely used the off arm and didn't get called for it, but he did. And then he misses, and then Durant gets the rebound, and then, free throws and blah, blah, blah. But the fact that Booker, points at the spot and, I think says, you missed or whatever he was doing there, or, someone got the foul, whatever it was, I don't know. I didn't, try to lip read. The fact that he did that, and it's, clearly intended at Luka, and then Luka gets annoyed at him, and they have to be separated. It's just, I want that. I want, more friction among our best players and among our elite teams. I think this adds to it. It's great. But this game is also just, a really highly competitive, playoff-y kind of game. It's a very big shootout without Kyrie and Luka being truly awesome as scorers. Neither of those guys were really the best versions of themselves in a way you'd expect they might be 2 or 3 times in a 7-game series.
Which is crazy to say when they had 64 combined points, but you're kind of right. Luka was inefficient, and then Kyrie, it was I just didn't feel him as much in the second half. He felt like he faded away a little bit. And 30 for Kyrie, it's he can do that, and you don't even really notice it. He really wasn't there in that fourth quarter in a big way.
No, I felt Luka was way too in his own little bubble in the fourth. Way too not looking for Kyrie. There's a lot of moments where Luka drives and you see how the defense, whether it was this game or any other game, defenses then put 2 or 3 on him and collapse into the paint. There's a crater that opens up on the perimeter for a shooter to slide it on the back end and for them to get open shot. Kyrie is often just already standing in that spot, and Luka's not even looking over there. That is just easy book, good opportunities, good shots that they're just kind of giving up, or Luka is kind of giving up. I didn't love the way he really played in this game, honestly. I think not trying on defense. I think complaining about every call, which is not a new thing, but there's just a lot about this game about Luka. As good as he is, I was just Booker just kind of handled his business. KD just kind of handled his business. Chris Paul, the point god, shows up in the fourth and is awesome down the stretch. And he had a moment 04 or something like that. Gets the rebound, he pushes, and he just gets to the left elbow, hits a little pull up over Christian Wood, and I'm just this is some peak point guard stuff. Chris Paul just deep in his bag, picking his spots off of KD and Devin Booker. I love this Suns team. A great win for them. I would like to see this in the playoffs. That is where my head goes. Give me 7 games of this in the playoffs. I really would like it. That might kill you, but I would like it for me.
No, I think it probably would. I think the most likely way we get this in the playoffs right now would be for the Suns to get to 3 and for Dallas to get to 6, because I don't think Dallas is going to get to 5 with the Warriors playing pretty well. We'll talk about them later. So we'll see. But I think, so you talked about picking your spots. I think that's kind of interesting because you could also look at Chris Paul only taking 9 shots with 7 assists and feel like that's just not making enough use of him. How do you think about that? Because on the one hand, that's true. On the other hand, he did make the 2 shots late. And then the other part of it is you probably kind of like the idea of Chris Paul playing very few minutes and doing very little and still winning if it means that you feel even 10% better that he's going to get through the playoffs healthy, because that's been a big question, is like the most obvious statement you could say about the NBA.
Well, I think that's exactly it, right? Like, you want Paul healthy. The Suns are going to be better with Chris Paul. You're going to have like everything that he provides. But I think even if it is not like playing fewer minutes when the chips are down and he's going to play like heavy minutes in the playoffs, I think just like what KD in there allows him to do is like not have to exert himself 100% every single time, right? Like, he no longer has to like be full on exertion, pushing for stuff, like dictating everything. Like he can really just settle into being like, I'm the third banana. My job is to like get DeAndre Ayton lobs and play defense and pick my spots on shots. Like, it was a perfect thing for him, I think, Brandon, when he gets that rebound and he pushes and he's like, okay, I know exactly how to get to the left elbow and get this shot off over Christian Wood, and I'm going to stick it. And if he does that a couple times in a playoff series, that's a big deal. And I think especially in a world where he's going to be the guy probably that like teams with big wings try to put him one-on-one. Like, if they played Milwaukee in the finals, that's going to happen with Middleton and probably Drew. That happened here with Luka. Even if like he is not apex Chris Paul, if he can exert a little less energy on offense and just having to do all of that because of KD, you have a better chance of Chris Paul showing up in those big moments and being the kind of defender you need him to be in those spots. This is just like I think really maybe there's more shots, there's more assists or whatever. Maybe his usage is higher. This to me is like the template of what a Chris Paul game should look like with Kevin Durant in the roster in a big game.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and I think you up your chances of getting something like what we saw in 2021 to close out the Clippers in the conference finals, where he just goes for 40. He's feeling it. He's getting to his spots. He's getting open. He's shooting it over no matter how big the guy is in front of him, and you're just getting that moment. They're only going to need that a handful of times, and I think they probably can get it. 73 combined from Booker and Durant, just filthy, crazy stuff. The end of this game was just a shot-making show. Like, it was just they might as well have filmed it, and then they just send it to like Montverde in Florida and show the high school kids that want to be NBA players. This is what offense can be at its highest form.
And like only 1-3 for Booker. Like, very just get into the lane, hit pull-ups, make tough shots. Like a very like playoff-y, know-how kind of performance from Devin Booker.
I would have closed this game on the Mavs side with Christian Wood, would be my last thought here. He played about as well on defense as I think you could expect from him, and he was very good on offense, drawing fouls, getting rebounds even. He only had 3, but it felt like he was on the glass. I wouldn't be surprised if they got more rebounds when he was out there, and Dwight Powell just wasn't very good. So going forward, when these teams play next, I don't know if they play again in the regular season, but definitely if there's a playoff series, Wood is going to be a big X factor for this team no matter what. But I was surprised. Well, I wasn't surprised. Jason Kidd doesn't seem to like playing Christian Wood. But
no, he does not.
If he was going to do it in any game, I thought it would have been this one. He didn't do that, so we'll see. Saturday night, we had Philadelphia and Milwaukee, another playoff caliber, very, very good superstar-laden game, Chris. 133-130. Sixers beat the Bucks. 48 points in the fourth quarter for the Sixers. We had Maxey getting his second straight start over DeAnthony Melton. We had Tobias Harris and PJ Tucker both going out with injuries. So all of a sudden the Sixers, who had been having this 5-man unit that they were comfortable with, 3 of those guys switch over, and they have Maxey, McDaniels, and Niang closing the game. They were down 17 with 2 minutes left in the third, and then I told you that 48-point fourth quarter, they come back to win it. This was another one where it was just like playoff intensity, but also playoffs in the way that it's like just superstars making plays at the end of the day, and that's what it was.
This felt like a playoff game. Like, this felt like a game between two teams that are like with two superstars, two of the best 3 to like 4 players in the league, going at each other, competing. Philly just like, I think like Philly just feels so legit to me now too, in a way that like I don't know if I was there a month and a half ago. We still really need to see it in the playoffs, and I think like ultimately I would have Milwaukee and Boston ahead of them in the East. Like, this doesn't like change my opinion on that necessarily, but like this team is legit. And I like a lot of that to me, Brendon, comes from how good James Harden was in the second half of this game. He's making threes. He had a ton of assists. He is making the shots you need him to. Like, this is the kind of Harden that if you get him enough and like he doesn't do what he's done in the past in big moments and kind of like fall apart, this is a Harden that like really, really can help you win and help you carry things and help you kind of like take the load off of Embiid. And like, he showed up in a really big game against a really good team. He just did. And like that is credit to Harden. We'll talk, I think, a little bit about maybe what his what his future might hold later, because there's just more noise about that in a way that I find very bizarre. But in the moment right now with Philly, like he is playing at this level. I saw a couple people on Twitter kind of posit like, okay, he didn't make the All-Star game. He probably should have. I think he should have been an All-Star, or at least like more kind of talked about as a snub. Like, is it possible he like backdoors his way into like All-NBA? Like, we're gonna do an All-NBA episode, but like it feels like he should be in the running for that at this point in one of the 6 guard spots.
He's been very good. He still has so many of these games where he's just doesn't make twos, but that's fine. That's nitpicking. He was 6 of 17 from 2-point range in this game, and that's just Harden. Like, I don't want to dive in too much on that because he was excellent, but 38 points, 10 assists, just 2 turnovers. I was pretty fascinated with him on how I doubt it was just him. The Sixers had a clear plan to attack Middleton. And it's always one of these things that's interesting when you think you know who the matchup manipulator types are going to go after, right? Whether that's LeBron or Luka or Harden or whoever. And then it's somebody different. And we think of Middleton as good positional defender, sturdy, strong, long arms, big for his position, all that stuff. He's coming off of injury. I'm sure that had something to do with it, but they wanted him off of switches, and they got him, and Harden cooked, and it worked. That really jumped out to me as far as what they're doing. And then I also think watching more of this team, because they've been on national TV constantly, and I'm down for it. Keep doing it, because the games have been incredible, Chris. But the way that team is able to use their 2 best players together. I mean, we were just talking about it with Dallas, right? Those guys both had 30-plus against the Suns on Sunday, but it didn't feel like they were making each other better. Joel and Harden, the way that 2-man game is able to work and benefit both players, that's up there to me in terms of the best teams in the NBA incorporating their best 2 guys and actually having it mean something for the team. That's been really special to watch for sure. I mean, I think it was like they're the only 2 players this season with 30 and 10 assists combined, or in many years. They've been filthy lately.
Harden and Embiid is a 2-man game, particularly like the pick and roll they will run and the variations, like whether it's, whatever version of the pick and roll it is. It's like nearly unguardable. Like, it just is. Like, Embiid, here's what you're picking between. You're picking between Harden giving him an open 3. Even if he's not as explosive as he was, he's going to make a good chunk of those shots if you leave him open, if you overcommit to Embiid. If it's Embiid, or if it's you let him pass, he's going to make a good pass. He's a really good passer. If it's Embiid, it's like, okay, like, do you let him go one-on-one on a quick roll and get up and maybe get an N1? Do you put 2 on him and he still maybe is going to draw a foul? Like, is he going to, maybe he makes the read out of that to like a shooter or whatever. Like, there's no like good option for you in defending that. It is not like some of these like centers where even if they're like a good lob threat, like you could maybe, if you defend it correctly and you have a smart enough center, you could maybe kind of get them into being at the free throw line and having to take a floater or just like reset the offense. Like that never happens, it feels like, with these two guys. And if you're telling me like, hey, they could ride this deep into the playoffs, like this is a good enough duo, particularly when you surround it with shooting, to just be like a real problem for any of these teams. Like it would not shock me, Brendan, whether if they get like, even if they don't win, it would not shock me at all if like this Philly team like takes like a Boston or a Milwaukee to 7 and it's like a slugfest for 7 games. Would not shock me at all. Like even when Boston, like they have Horford and Time Lord. Like I would take Joel just like probably performing really well in that series, even with those two guys. He's just that good, and like Harden is a big part of that. Yeah. Even with some of the defensive stuff they could throw at him with the wings.
I don't think there's anybody who really can stop Embiid at this point. I mean, I don't think there's any team where I'm like, he'll struggle, right? And I think you're right like, that...
What is like the version of defending Embiid that teams have done with Jokic, which like not every team can do, but it's like, hey, let's put our like really strong, little smaller 4 and on him directly in the post, and then we put our 5 rim protector like in help and make and challenge him. What do you do with Embiid?
To me, I think the only time that I feel like Embiid struggles is when he's tired or when he just makes bad decisions, right? And so I think you can probably get him to make some bad decisions by mixing up the help. I think you still would want obviously against any big man like that, somebody who can stand up with him one-on-one in the post and not fall apart, foul too much, whatever. That's easier said than done, but that's the first ingredient. I think it's less so about sort of like the help against him directly, like doubling him or trying to block his shot at the rim because he's as big and tall as Jokic is. Embiid has another 3 inches and like 30 pounds, right? And so you're not doing that. It's more just make him turn the ball over, make him feed the wrong guy, whatever. But the stat that I had, Chris, is the Sixers are the second best clutch net rating in the NBA this season.
Yeah.
And it's like, you think of them as a team that can be so kind of up and down with that stuff. They're not really. They've been pretty consistently good. And I thought it was really telling. There was a moment about 2 minutes left in the game when Harden had been cooking. Jalen McDaniels got fouled on that 3. Then Drew hits a corner 3. And then they run another pick and roll. The Bucks were up in that game at that point by 4. They run a pick and roll, and Harden has a direct opening from the right wing. He's driving to the basket. I think Lopez was out of the paint, and he dishes it to Embiid, who misses. And he wasn't really in rhythm, whatever. Harden had the momentum. That felt like a really telling moment. Jalen McDaniels ends up getting the putback dunk on that shot. People will remember that play. Mm-hmm. But that felt really big to me, that even when Harden had it going, he was like, I know we're going to, like, even if it's a month from now, I need to do this, right? And he did it, and then they obviously still end up winning the game because they make some bonkers 3s at the end. Quickly on the Bucks, though. Giannis, this was a typical Giannis doesn't play well game. We've seen this before. Lots of turnovers. He doesn't get going in transition because they build a wall. When he does catch the ball, he hesitates. There's help. He's passes the wrong direction. He tosses up some bad, short floater type of tough shots that don't go in. It builds on itself, and then you look up, and yes, the production is there, but not a difference-making game. And 7 turnovers is kind of ugly. 9 of 21 from the field. I'm not worried about Giannis, but I think Embiid reminded us. I don't think he proved it. We knew it. He reminded us that he is an answer against Giannis in big games.
He'll like, if we get this in the playoffs, and it's very possible this is like the 2-3 second round matchup.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that absolutely decides the series. That could tilt the series. That could change where this is going. That is, I think, incredibly worth noting. This is the kind of thing that if like Giannis had two of these games in a series, like that's maybe enough. Like that's how close we could get with this. I think it could be a little farther than that in terms of separation, but that feels like a little bit on the table to me in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's also that element you always have with Giannis, though, where it's like, okay, was he really... I don't think he was playing 100%. Not that I'm saying the injuries that he's been dealing with were the problem, but he just can turn it up. And until I see him struggle against this team when I know he's playing at 100% aggressiveness, it's hard for me to fully judge. But Philly won't feel bad that they got to win anyway. All right, some interesting and a little darker news here, Chris. The Memphis Grizzlies had about the worst Saturday, I think, in the history of Saturdays.
Sure.
This weekend, with not only coming off of a loss against Denver, which we could talk about if you want to, but also Brandon Clark tears his Achilles, and then Ja with the suspension / choice to step away from the team after criminal allegations, as well as an IG live that I think he would take back if he could, where he's flashing a gun at what looks like a strip club, releases a statement about taking some time away. So the Ja story is obviously the biggest. That's its own separate thing, but things have not been great for Memphis recently.
No, and like the Ja thing is like the it just like adds to all of it. Like it doesn't make any of this like easier if like from a team perspective. Like I would like love to know like privately like what do the teammates think right now about this? Like what is their reaction to this? Because like this is a team that has not necessarily shied away from like extracurricular like feeding into like rivalries like with the Timberwolves. Like Dylan Brooks obviously is on their team and like that adds like a certain level of things. But this is like a whole other thing. This is like a real world thing. Like I'm sure like just like it went off at like a bomb amid, you know, like on Twitter and like in talking to like people in my life about that the Washington Post John Morant article, like before we even get this Instagram live, it is like this really big thing. Like look, credit to him, you know, for the statement, I guess. Like as much as I'm sure like there's a PR team involved in that. Like, you know, it's hard to know exactly like I the cynic in me is like I don't know how much we can always attribute like someone's actual words in some of these things, because like there's just no way like he's like actually probably writing that himself. It's just like that's not how this works, you know?
No, but I do think there's something. I think there's a version of events here where if he also deactivated his social media accounts.
Good.
You know,
we all probably should do that.
Yeah, we should.
Unless you're following the Just Basketball accounts, then keep them.
Sure. Then just have one follow and log in once a day to check our stuff and then go off. But no, I think there's a version of this where he keeps pushing back. He keeps being kind of obstinate about it, which
for sure, absolutely.
Without putting blame on or without putting a reason behind what he did, it wasn't just that it was another incident with the IG Live. It was the doubling down of it, right? Because that article comes out. There's a lot of noise around this team, which there already had been, because some of the things in that post article were bits and pieces had already been out there, and then that kind of brought it all together, put some new allegations out there, whatever. He could have let that be the moment to take a step back. He doubles down with that live, and so I think that there is something to be said for finally having kind of that rock bottom moment. And I would imagine that doing it this way, to me, Chris, with the at least 2 games he's going to step away. We don't know what the pressure was from either side, but it's being framed as a choice. The NBA did not release a press release saying that they suspended this guy.
Correct.
So I give him some credit for knowing that enough is enough. We'll judge him by his actions going forward, but that does take some maturity. He is a very young dude, younger than either one of us. Lord knows if I had that many millions of dollars, I probably would not handle it as well as I think I would handle it now. And I don't know. I kind of look like, did you see what Jalen Rose said?
I did not.
That was
give me the TLDR.
Yeah, I mean, he's on the Fab Five teams, and he had, you know, a lot of fame early in his life and whatever. And he just kind of like, I think hearing from the former players who have dealt with this puts into perspective that this is not easy. And dealing with that process of changing what your life was and who was in it to what it needs to be and who needs to be in it is a very unfathomably difficult thing for all of us who have never had to do that. And I'm glad that in that statement he kind of said, like, I need to find better methods of dealing with stress and well-being rather than what I'm doing, because that's clearly getting me in trouble.
So that is exactly right. I want to be very clear about like that, my opinions on that side of it. I think that is exactly correct. Like he, as a human being, you like that is how is like a very good way of going about it. My cynicism is just like, it comes from just like, okay, like I would like to, it's like when you don't hear someone say, like like, okay, this is like a journalism or thing. When I like have to like write something for like my day job or like write something, and it's like I always like make it clear that like when it's like I don't like to use when someone said something when it's like in a press release or something, because like I didn't actually hear them say it. Like I would like to see like what he has to say when he gets asked about it. The other thing about this is that like I kind of hope for his sake and like just for everything, I think it should be more than 2 games. Like go away for like, I understand there's basketball implications and all of that. But like if this is like a really big deal and like whatever's in the Washington Post thing, the violence kind of involved in a lot of the allegations here, the tenor of that behavior alleged and otherwise, it's just like he's a star player who is one of the most popular players in the league with young people. Right? I kind of just like I go away for more than 2 games. Go figure this out in a meaningful way and then come back. I understand there are implications, but like go worry about yourself in that sense. And I'm curious to see what the NBA does too. Like I don't know if you saw the Bomani Jones tweets about this, but he pointed out that like J.R. Smith once got fined. Well, there's one that stood out to me that was like J.R. Smith once got fined $25,000 for posting a photo of a woman in a thong, like in a bed. Mm-hmm. This is like,
I mean, Paul Pierce got fired from ESPN for being around people stripping.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I know it's ESPN versus the NBA. It's different, but like you're right. Like people get punished for even kind of like the unseemly behavior side of this, let alone a firearm, which you're supposed to notify the league and your team if you own, and all these different like subsequent league things that can get dicey. So I tend to agree with you that there's probably more going on behind the scenes. I kind of doubt Ja just like immediately woke up on Saturday and was like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to step away. No, like there were probably conversations here, and I tend to agree with you too that if like I always try to think of it with the equivalent thing that I can relate to. And if I was in a situation like this, or people that I've known who I've worked with, if they're on a leave of absence, that's not a week.
No.
You need time. No one knows how much time. We also don't know what he's getting help. We don't know what that necessarily means, but I just hope that, I guess I kind of hope that basketball doesn't bring him back too soon. And their standings situation is worrisome, so I don't know if that's going to hold, but I hope it doesn't.
I just don't care about like the standings sort of this from the sense like I would rather Ja like go and do
right?
I know, and like I'm sure his team does. It is just like if the work is going to get done here, and he is going to come back like a healthier person and handle stress better and not do this kind of stuff again, right? And like actually, like that work does not happen over the course of missing 2 basketball games. It is like probably like longer than like the rest of the season. Like I'm not saying that, but I'm not saying this is like, you miss a month and you come back and everything's fine. Like this is often like lifelong. This is like year. Like this takes time, and he's very young. And I'm sure there are like things in his life that we like. I'm sure even like reporters covering Memphis, like what his interaction with or like with family and things that are like whatever it is, like there's just something there that has to get figured out, and the work that needs to get done. It's just like that to me supersedes the basketball side of this. You just hope like it's right, but I'm also sure it's like the competitor in him is just like I would not like to lose the 2 seed to the Kings.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that it kind of came to a head during the season. And that he has to pick between the two. I think that's really where he's going to be left is, ideally, like I said, with the leave of absence for an everyday person's job, you would get the freedom if you're at a job that allows you that to take as much time as you need and not have to worry about any of it. NBA players don't get that. And I'm sure that only compounds the problems that maybe got him to this point is the grind and the stresses and the pressures of being an NBA star. But obviously something that's not going to be going away anytime soon, so we'll all get to kind of follow it as it moves forward and eventually probably hear from Ja about his side of it rather than that statement that we have to parse. Last quick bit of news, Chris. James Harden, the Houston Rockets, another strange story here. The noise is getting louder. Another feature from The Athletic, Sam Amick, Kelly Iko. There was the report from Woj on Christmas. The connections between these two parties aren't going away, and I don't really get it from either side.
I don't either.
I think it's misinformed from the Rockets' perspective and the Harden perspective.
I agree. Like they trade, like if they are trying to accelerate winning because they don't have future picks. They traded those picks to get Russell Westbrook, which is what James Harden wanted, and like they shot themselves in the foot then. There's like if I am James Harden, and even if I like love the city of Houston and love what it offers me in terms of nightlife, which we know is very important to James Harden. Brendan, by the way, if you had a birthday party, would you throw a fake cake off of your yacht? Like James Harden did? I don't think. I just like.
Hold on, I have a yacht in this.
Yeah, you have a yacht, or maybe you rented it. I don't know. Maybe you have enough money to rent like a really nice yacht.
If I had yacht money, I wouldn't be worried about cake money. That's
fair.
I guess I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I'm more likely to be like Daniel Plainview, like chewing steak by myself on my birthday. But that's a whole.
Even if I had renting yacht money, I don't think I would really worry about cake money personally.
Little bit, yeah. Like maybe little baby gives you enough money in this situation to just like buy like a lot of cake, cakes.
If I'm getting the suitcase full of cash that James Harden also has been involved with as a gift, then that probably pays for the cake by itself. But yeah, I mean that stuff's important to him. But I think winning is supposed to be also right.
Yeah, so he's not going to win if he goes back to Houston. This team is not equipped to win. There's no way that even if they had Harden that he shows up this year, like next year, and it's like, oh yeah, we've turned the corner. Like Jalen Green has not like accelerated this year, and you have to keep developing him. You have to keep developing Sengun. You have to keep developing Josh Christopher and maybe Kevin Porter Jr. and like Jabari Smith, who like really hasn't been very good for you this year. Like Harden is gonna like certainly do things to like give those guys catch and shoot opportunities and all that stuff, but like he's then taking also like on ball reps away from guys that are gonna be with you long in theory longer than he ever would be, and like that to me is I if I'm him, why like you could win a title like even if you don't win it this year. Like you have a window to win with Joel Embiid. This is your best path of all your realistic options to like win a title. And if it's Philly or Houston, Philly gives you a chance to win a title. It just does. And like maybe this is all ultimately like trying to like maximize like money, and maybe like he gets like, but like maybe that's what this is. But like there's so much buzz and like smoke with this now with Woj with it like this is weird. This is just weird to me more than anything else.
I think from a basketball standpoint, you're right on the Philly stuff. I could see it just being leverage. I could see it, he sacrificed, well publicized that he sacrificed in order for them to be able to fit PJ Tucker and Daniel House in. House isn't even playing, so I'm sure Harden's kind of like, what did I do there? For that guy, I did it for that guy, but basketball situation seems pretty ideal in Philly. Basketball situation, I think if they get Wembanyama, I see it more. I think the version of Harden we've seen in Philly could actually be a pretty helpful partner for Wembanyama. I don't see it if they want to prioritize developing Jalen Green, if they get Scoot Henderson or Amen Thompson, guys who are more like ball handlers. I don't think Harden makes sense at all to continue to grow those players developmentally. And so I don't really know why Houston would do it. I think it probably makes less sense from Houston's standpoint. It feels like the only incentive for them is respectability and not losing good draft picks. That doesn't feel like enough of a reason to get this over the hump. So I tend to feel like right now I'm still leaning he ends up back with the Sixers for one reason or another. What do you think?
I agree. There's two other questions I would have about this. Number one, like does James Harden like as much as is it like does he want to go to Houston to like be like a veteran on a young team but also be in Houston, or does he want to go in Houston just to be in Houston and he's going to do whatever he wants? Like what like there's a difference there. So like that would really I think impact like his ability to bring the best out of Wemby and bring the best out of Jalen Green. Secondly, who is like going to coach this team? Because like Steven Silas is like probably getting fired. Who is like the coach that like you trust to like make all of that work? I can't think like there are coaches I really like who are available. There will probably be like assistants, you or I like don't know or like aren't fully aware of that would do like a really good job. But like how do you if you're Tillman Fertitta and Raphael Stone like go through like that whole process and be like this is the right coach to have a James Harden plus Jalen Green plus Scoot Henderson or Wembanyama or whatever roster.
They just don't fit together. I mean, it just doesn't even.
Yeah. So like, are you just
doesn't even matter? Right?
So are you selling jerseys? Like, is that what you're doing here? Then why are you like? Is that
what they're
it?
Doing? Tillman Fertitta told us what they're doing. They are praying for Wembanyama. He said that. Remember the interview? He's drunk or whatever, and he said praying for Victor. So that sounds like their game plan for the next 6 months is hope that the French dude comes and saves everything for you, because it doesn't feel like they have a whole lot of plan on the court. Doesn't seem like they have a whole lot of plan with what they're going to spend their money on. I mean, getting Harden, I guess, would be the best way to spend the money. You're not going to get a better player than that, but it doesn't really tell us a whole lot about a concrete future vision. Speaking of future vision, we're going to look into the crystal ball. The NBA dark horse crystal ball, Chris. Mull over, debate a little bit about where these 4 teams might be headed. They're kind of in the middle of the pack right now. A lot of them are on win streaks or, trending up. But how far can they actually go? And we're going to start with our New York Knicks. The world, the country, America's New York Knicks, the globe's New York Knicks. They're on a 7-game win streak right now. They're 5th in the East, 1 game back from Cleveland, 3rd in offense, 17th in defense, 7th in net rating. I have been obsessed with this team lately.
Yeah.
I've watched all 3 of their games this week. I think the only one I didn't watch was the Nets. They're really fun. They're legitimately good. They have a deep rotation after the deadline and with Mitchell Robinson coming back. And they have a lot of different ways they can play. I think this team is a serious playoff threat is where I'll start.
They are the team that, like, if you look in the East, that's like not among the contenders, just like has the most like rock solid depth kind of everywhere, and that gives them like a really good place to start. And like they've also like turned over minutes to young guys in a way that I think like Tibbs has historically not been willing through. Like the fact that Emmanuel Quickley is playing for them and the way he's playing is a really, really big deal. That's given them a huge
and Grimes
boost.
Is starting.
Mm-hmm. Grimes has been playing well. Like this team has a lot of like just stuff, and like the Josh Hart trade has been great for them. Like he is a competent defender. He fits what they're doing. Like it's also helped that Brunson's just been on an absolute like heater for like the last month and just playing like insanely high basketball. But where I come though with this, what I think like ultimately like I feel about this team is like I think everyone in this team is like going to be very dependable in the playoffs, with one exception. And this isn't like that he's going to be bad necessarily. But I think this team's ceiling is so reliant on like Julius Randle's variance. In particular, I mean, as like a shooter, because that Heat game is like really a story to me about like how Julius Randle was like insanely hot from 3. And if he's going to do that and make these like really tough threes that he takes at times, like they're not like clean catch and shoot threes he's always taking. It is like 1-2 dribbles, pulling up, taking them. Like he's not going to go like he made like I think like 8 in that game. Like he's not going to do that every game. He's going to have games where he's like 1 of 6 or 1 of 7 or 2 for 8. Like that's going to happen. But when they have him doing that and like Brunson's playing the way he is and they have just a lot of confidence everywhere else, and Mitchell Robinson being back has been, I think, really good for them. They just like are hard to beat when Randle is that hot. When he's not that hot, I think they're like off, like they just are a little bit easier to kind of navigate. Like you don't feel like you're getting punched in the face with them offensively in that way necessarily. But when Randle is like that, the ceiling on their offense just hits like this other level. And it's like they play this was big against Miami. They played Cleveland and New York like a month or 2 ago at this point, I think. And Randle just like cooked them from 3, and it's like there's no way you're winning this game if Randle's just going to be unconscious like that. So if he just goes hot like that in the playoffs in particular, and is like really locked in a series that he can fit well in, they're absolutely going to be a pain in the butt to play at the very, very least. And it looks like we're getting Cleveland, New York in round 1 is where this feels like this is headed. They're gonna be like a really hard like 6-7 game team to kind of beat in the playoffs. It feels like.
Let's circle back to that. I feel better about Randle this season overall, and he's had a pretty different season because we all remember the first full COVID year. He shot 41% from deep, then he kind of got solved in the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. He's taking almost 3 threes per game more than he did that season. He's only making 35%. But I kind of like the comfort and the commitment to taking them.
Yes.
Because I think what happened with the Hawks series a little bit was that they were able to just send help and just make him second guess himself when he was in that extended post area or in that mid-range area. And you're just kind of in no man's land there unless you're a killer scorer. And when he wasn't able to create and make shots, what are you going to do out of that spot, right? And so I almost like that he just has decided I'm taking them if they're open. It's creating more space for Brunson, which is a secondary help there. And I just think overall, the ball moves better. They have a lot better personnel to connect between their star players so that it's not just dump it into Randall as much as it used to be, but Randall's going to get the ball at the end of a possession. He's going to get the ball in space. He's going to get the ball. He has the most end of shot clock jumpers that I think of anybody in the NBA, it feels like, because they just keep moving the ball. I don't even hate it. They fit RJ Barrett into their offense pretty well. So, I just think, he's been a big negative, but I like it better than how they used to use it.
I'm a little out on Barrett.
I just like the vibes.
I'm out on Barrett a little bit.
I probably went too far.
I'm with you all the way in the Knicks, and I'm
and
with
then
most.
I said RJ Barrett, and it fell apart.
Yeah, I don't try. I think he's the guy. If they play Cleveland, Mitchell's just gonna get to hide on him, and they're gonna be like, "Hey, RJ Barrett, if you beat us, that's fine." And I just don't think he's gonna be good enough offensively to cook you that way.
Let's talk about the Cavs then to close out this crystal ball for the Knicks, because that's really the future, right? It seems like a lock. These two teams are going to play each other. The Knicks are only 2 games up on Brooklyn, but Brooklyn is fading pretty fast here. Miami is 4 games back.
Also,
like 4-5.
I just want to say this: Miami's not good. Miami is absolutely going to be a 7 seed and be a pain in the butt to play, for Boston or someone. But Miami is,
but a pain in the butt in a sweep.
Yeah, 5. They're not
close, 4 close games or something.
They are not good. Kevin Love has not been good for them. When they came back into the Knicks the other night, Kevin Love was noticeably just off the floor for a large stretch of that. That team is not good. Jimmy Butler rules. They're going to be annoying. That team is not good.
No, they're not very good. I think if I was creating odds on a series, if I was creating series prices for Cavs Knicks,
okay,
and Cleveland gets home court, I think it would be Cavs minus 115 or something. It would be pretty close. I really think that Cleveland is going to be pushed in this series. I think that they are a bad team to play when the concern already was young experience. They're going to have to figure things out. I know the Knicks are also young, so maybe that's not as big of a factor as I'm making it out to be. But if you're telling me the Cavs have to figure out a team that's going to beat you up, play very cohesive, connected basketball, have 2 legitimate star players, they know what they are, and they have some of these strengths in terms of rebounding and size and free throw rate, things that the Cavs are middling in compared to things that are elite in. I don't know. If you told me that the Knicks won a road game 7 to win that series, it would not shock me.
Yeah, we'll transition, I think, into Cleveland next because they are in this discussion.
Yeah, let's do it.
I agree with you on that. I think there are, if there's one thing that I would feel good about if I'm Cleveland, that in terms of how you match up against Brooklyn, I think it was going to be very reliant on JB Bickerstaff just playing him enough and riding out some of the offensive ups and downs. But Okoro has given Brunson a lot of issues this year defensively. He has put Brunson in a very tricky spot, and if you cut that off, I think to some degree you're going to find some success. And I think that puts you in a really, really good spot. But the thing about the Knicks that I would feel great about if I'm them versus Cleveland is they're just deep. They're deeper. They have a better top. Their best players are not better than Cleveland's best players. No. Mitchell's the best player in the series. And I think you could I think I would take Garland over Brunson, but I think if you wanted to argue that, I'm not going to scream at you and tell you you're completely stupid, right? Brunson in particular this year has just been better. And we've also seen him in the playoffs before. We have not seen Darius Garland in the playoffs go through this before.
And I think that the thing about Brunson too with that is I think we know what he does will translate. I can see it maybe more easily immediately translating to his first heavy load playoff series than
Well, he had a practice.
I could see Garland figuring it out, right?
Brunson had a practice run. Is the thing he had that Luka's out and he gets the practice run, which is a really big deal for him.
Who were just blowing up, yeah.
And Donovan Mitchell just not trying on defense at all. I would really like this in the playoffs, just for the record. There's a lot of drama. The Knicks will push the Cavs buttons in a fun way. Josh Hart is maybe the best way to explain the differences between these two teams because the Cavs had interest in Josh Hart at the deadline. They did not have the assets to go get Josh Hart. they would like clearly benefit from a guy that even if he's not the perfect shooter and like the perfect 3-and-D fit and blah blah blah, like Josh Hart just like adds to like a team when you need some certain things and is like ready to win, and like he would be playing like a ton of minutes. He would just be playing like a crap ton of minutes for them.
I mean, he's allowed the Knicks to not have to close with RJ, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
And now they have a little bit more flexibility. Like I always go back to that, the playoffs. You got to have answers to different stuff, and I think Hart gave them a little bit more malleability to where I don't worry. I think the Cavs would have been maybe a good matchup for the Knicks either way, but now you just feel that much better. They have multiple different things that they can go to. Let's jump over to the Cavs, though, in depth here, Chris. So they're 4th in the East, 1 game up on the Knicks, like we just talked about, 9th in offense, 3rd in defense, 2nd in net rating. To focus in on them for a second, I feel – just tell me who you think the team's top 8 rotation is in a must-win Game 5.
I mean,
who are 6 through 8 outside of the starters?
It's LeVert, Rubio, and Wade, and I think if you feel bad about that, you should. You should, because I have a Locked On Cavs episode coming out on Monday that people can check out, and one of the I talked about Dean Wade in the top segment because he against the Pistons he again like didn't take the open threes, swung his way, and he didn't make the 2 threes he took, and like so. Let's hit on Dean Wade for a second, because I like the Cavs. Look, we're in the weeds of the point.
It matters.
We're here.
It matters.
Yeah. The Cavs made it
kind of crazy to think like Dean Wade is gonna like swing a playoff series.
Well, and like they need him to play well, because when Kevin Love leaves, they were like, okay, we want to give Dean Wade playing time, and he's been capped out at like 10 to 15 minutes. And like he is, I think, a better basketball player in 2023 than Kevin Love is, because he can defend. He's a little bit stronger. He can like handle some switches, particularly against wings. Like he can hold up against straight line drives against wings in a way that I think you feel good about if you played like Boston or something. Like you're not happy about it, but if like Jaylen Brown puts his shoulder into him or something, like he's gonna survive more than you think he might.
Sure.
Good enough shooter when he actually shoots. A little more athletic, gives you like some off the bounce stuff. But there's 2 things that Kevin Love did, especially when he was healthy and playing well, that were really like important, vital skills to Cleveland. That was just unconscious shooting from 3 and just letting him fly on catch and shoot opportunities, and he could throw outlet passes that jump started their offense and gave them a little bit of juice. Dean Wade doesn't provide those 2 things in the same way, and you feel like the difference there in a very real way. Even if I think Dean is probably like better right now, like in everything he can do, and more versatile than what Kevin Love is. That and like he's their backup big. Like in the playoffs, they are going to play Mobley and Allen as the only those are the only 2 guys that are going to play. They're going to play minutes. Wade is the backup, and he's going to be needed to shoot threes and do all the stuff on the wing. And it has been like kind of he had a shoulder injury earlier in the year that maybe it's still bothering him in his head. He still wears like one of those compression sleeves over the top, but it has not been like a perfect transition for him into this role that they need him to play up into.
I think that the Cavs bench is thin enough, especially again thinking about a Knicks series. We don't usually feel like that's going to decide a playoff series, but you could tell me that a game or 2 is swung because the bench minutes are so aggressively in the Knicks' favor. But let's talk about the star player, Donovan Mitchell. I had in my notes that I don't like how reliant they are on Mitchell offensively. You had in your notes that I'm overstating that. So let's talk about that, because I'm saying that for 2 reasons. One is you watch the Boston game they played this week. You watch some of the games that they've scored a lot or had to make a big push. It's mostly all him. Pull-up jumpers, driving to the basket, getting the free throw line, whatever it might be. That's the evidence. I would also say I've also watched Donovan Mitchell in the playoffs before. And most of the time, the offense is him.
Yeah.
And that's not a problem because it's been very good. But I don't necessarily feel like playoff Donovan Mitchell is the guy that is taking the ball into his hands and getting other players involved, whatever. And I think that him and Garland have fit together great. But I think that's another element of the adjustment we're going to need to see of those 2 playing off of one another in a 7-game series when the game plan is aimed at them not being able to do that. And I feel like Mitchell will end up being the guy who does it himself. That might take them a long way anyway, but it always is just going to worry me if a lot is based on one player scoring 30 plus every night.
I think where I just disagree a little bit is I think you're overstating just like that. It is like and this isn't like you're not the only person that has like I've had this conversation with, to be clear. Like and I get how you get here because this has been Mitchell's team, I think, in a lot of ways. But Garland is like the master of like the game within the game, kind of setting everything up and making everything function. And then you would like him to be a little more aggressive and turn that dial up and take some more pull up threes and stuff. But this is very much a guy I think that is really complimentary to Mitchell. Is gonna like his lineups have been better. Like the Cavs have been better when he's on the floor. It's like by like 2 points per run of possession, so not like a massive number. But they've been better when he's on the floor with Mitchell off versus Mitchell on and Garland off. That has been true for most of the year, and it is as those lineups have gotten better and they've been a little bit better. They've been better with Garland off versus Mitchell off or Mitchell on. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. I think what is gonna be challenging is he's gonna have to like grow into the playoffs like very fastly and learn and pick his spots and be aggressive, and like they got the playing game last year when it was like him on his own on an island in terms of his usage rate, in terms of having to do everything, and like I'm curious to see like what that looks like. I also don't think he's going to have a hard time transitioning after like a game or two. Maybe that's enough to make the series more uncomfortable than you'd like if you're Cleveland, or more competitive than you'd like if based on how good I think they are. But like that team, he is just as important about how everything functions. My issue, Brendan, really just is beyond this, and it's maybe feeds into the Mitchell stuff. Is you mentioned having solutions. I don't always feel like the Cavs like have the right roster to adjust to have solutions. Evan Mobley is the guy that ultimately is going to like maybe get to do that for you in some ways, and we've seen snippets of it here and there. They played Miami, they put him on Butler. Like he defended Tatum at times against Boston. He's going to do that. Like it wouldn't shock me if like they played Boston or someone around two, like he gets that assignment. But like they don't have the roster that like if. But maybe the best way to put this, they played Boston last week. Boston benched Grant Williams for that entire game because Grant Williams is a bad matchup. The Cavs don't have anyone. Grant Williams would play 30 minutes a night in and night out if they had Grant Williams. That is the difference between them and everybody else in the East right now.
Yeah, well, and that's part of it it's the depth, but it's also just, I think of the answers as being more offensive. I just don't think, I could see a game against the Knicks where their role players are making shots. Randall's making those threes, like you mentioned. Brunson's just driving. They're playing, 5 out, or they're even playing with, Robinson in the pick and roll or whatever it might be. And they're just scoring at a really high level, and Cleveland can't match that unless it's Mitchell. And that's why I come back to, because of the way that the other guys are, the way that the roster is, the unprovenness of somebody like Mobley to be that dominant kind of third guy you can go to, I feel like they're going to get in these games where they have no choice but for Mitchell to try to save them. That's what we've seen in a lot of these big games, and I'm not sure. But let's just throw a prediction out there. We're in the crystal ball. Cavs Knicks, first round. If I just ask you right now, what's your pick in terms of winner and number of games?
Cavs in 7.
Okay, I would have Knicks in 7.
So
we're close. I mean, that's a tough first round series. So
yeah,
let's jump into the West.
Well, but if this happens and you and I are at Summer League together, loser buys the first beer at one of the casinos.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay,
I will enjoy this series either way, so I'll be happy to buy a beer if it means a 7-game, pretty competitive series. All right, let's jump into the West though. Golden State Warriors 5-game win streak, 5th in the West, 1 game back from the Suns.
We should note they are currently, there's 38.4
right?
38.4 seconds left. They're down 6. Curry's been really good in the fourth, but it looks like that winning streak might be over.
True. Thank you. That streak will be dead, but they are still playing a lot better lately. The middle of the West is surprisingly tightening up between 3 and 5, which had not been the case for a bit, with Golden State, Phoenix, and Sacramento all playing pretty well. Interesting to me, Chris, from a statistical standpoint, 12th in offense, 11th in defense, 9th in net rating. This team had been kind of middling for a while. They're creeping up to top 10 in both, which I guess just kind of contributes to how crazy and weird this season has been overall. But is it time to believe in the Warriors?
I'm kind of there. When we had Wes Goldberg on, he kind of like crapped on us for both being like where we would have taken them in our contenders draft. We were both like, they're probably going to figure it out. And Wes was like, there's no evidence. And like, to suggest they're going to be good, and he's not wrong. But like I think
the evidence is last June, right?
And like all the stuff when they
won the NBA championship, like
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, we've hit on this a lot. I don't think that like there's been enough discussion about like what no Otto Porter Jr. means. I think that's a big deal. But if Curry's there, if Draymond's there, Klay is playing the way he's playing, and he's hitting more threes per game than he ever has. He looks like awesome the last like 2 months, month and a half, whatever. What happens with Wiggins and like what he looks like when he comes back feels like a really, really big deal. But this team like could like if this team went on a run and like was annoying and like made the finals again or something, like I wouldn't be shocked. Like I'm watching like Dante DiVincenzo has like been great for them as a really perfect warrior, and it's just like okay, like and they'll get Gabe in the second back, and that's okay. But like they have Klay, Steph is not back. I feel like they're probably going to be like right there in the playoffs. Like if you had to pick them against like the Clippers or like the Kings or like the Grizzlies, is it wrong to say like I might favor Golden State in all three of those? Maybe not the Clippers if they normalize, but that's like anti-Clippers.
TBD.
But would you take the Warriors against the Kings? I think I probably would. Would I take them against the Grizzlies?
I would take
probably
the Warriors
would.
over probably all three of those teams right now. But we're also talking about at a time when the Grizzlies and the Clippers are at rock bottom for different reasons, but just really it's crumbling around them. So
sure.
I think that might be different in a month. Let's get on. Let's talk about Klay Thompson a little bit and more in detail because I think he's kind of the big story for me. 25.1 points per game, 46% shooting, 45% from deep since February 1st. If he keeps that pace up, he will get to his career best scoring average for a season. You mentioned the 3-point thing that's been going around that he's on pace to. He's making right now more threes per game than he has in any season. The Steph off minutes when he's on the bench have been a big, forever, right? Outside of when Durant was there, it's been a big problem for them that they kind of perpetually need to try to solve. The Warriors, a lot of that's Steph just not even playing in the game, so it's not a perfect one-to-one comparison, but they're plus 1.9 per 100 possessions with Klay on the court and Steph off the court for the season at this point. That's pretty exciting to me. When you think about the chemistry that him and Poole have kind of gotten, where, Poole is deferring to Thompson, which Poole deferring is two words that don't always go in the same sentence. No. I think you can figure out some cool things there if Klay is able to be more of that secondary scorer. He wasn't even really that last year. I think offensively he's at a better place now than he was heading into last year's playoffs. Defensively, I don't know enough to say one way or another. I don't feel like it's been a problem, but he's always going to be a little worse than he used to be. Well, I just think that they've been able to make strides with other things, whether it's the rotation like you pointed out or Klay taking a step forward while Curry's been out. And now they have a decent amount of time now that he's back to have some chemistry and momentum going into a month from now. What would be I guess not even the play-in. They're kind of looking that in the rearview mirror at this point. They'll just probably play the Suns in the first round and hit the ground running.
Are you going to survive that?
That could be an all-time series, man. Like, especially when you factor in the Durant Warriors stuff.
Just
that
like
could really be like
the scoring,
like 7 games, crazy series.
The scoring outputs in those series could just be like incredible. Guaranteed to get some like Chris Paul and like Draymond like shithousery in a way that I think would be great. Yeah, sign me up. I would like that. I would quite enjoy that as someone who could get to watch it from afar and like sit on like a couch and just be like, wow, it's late in the East Coast, but I get to watch this like beautiful, and Brennan's like in the arena just being like, oh my God, like what is like just
I'm not doing a bet on that one. If that's I need to see it first. I need to see more of these Suns. I think they play one more time.
I would take the Suns
though. Monday, March 13th. That'll be a huge one.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that one when we record. Thank you, NBA gods, for not knowingly scheduling us a game like that we can then record the next day on and have it come out. So that's great. I just want to say the last thing I want to say about the Warriors. It's just about Klay, and like we have to give guys time coming off an injury. I understand like we live in a very now society. Sports are like, what have you done for me lately kind of thing. Klay needed time if this was ever going to happen and to play through it and be healthy for a while, and that has happened. And the NBA is a better place when like Klay is good. I love Klay. Klay is
Yeah.
one of the best shooters we've ever seen. He is just like absolutely like back to like a really, really high level now. I love that I love that this has happened for him. It was never like a lock to happen, right? Like this was never like something that you could like bet your life savings on that this was going to be how it turned out for him coming off of the injuries he did. And it is awesome that it has worked out correctly.
I was looking at his basketball reference today, and it just, this is going to sound so basic, but like it really jumped out to me to just see those 2 entire seasons.
Yeah.
That he just
gone.
2. It's just, I know it's obvious. It's like the whole story about Klay Thompson the past few years, but when you really just think like a player missing 1 season is like the first sentence in their retirement story. He did it. He missed 2 for 2 different reasons and then came back to win a title, and then he might break his single season scoring average career record. Like that's absurd. And it really, even if he's not Klay Thompson, capital K, capital T, although I know their names, so they're capitalized, he absolutely is better than I thought he would ever be. All right, let's close out with the Sacramento Kings. Also on a win streak, although I think they play somebody. No, they're off on Sunday. So that streak has continued. 3rd in the West, 3 games up on the Suns. Those teams face each other twice, which is interesting. The Kings are 1st on offense, 25th in defense, 8th in net rating. I think keeping the 3 seed is really important for them. And at the same time, if they keep it, or even jump to number 2, because I think they're only like a few games back there, I could see them really pushing Dallas or the Clippers. If the Clippers can't stop anybody and Dallas can't stop anybody, that plays right into the Kings' hands. And if you're just saying like who wins a 7-game shootout and the Kings had the upper hand, that recipe would not surprise me. I think that they are genuine. They are very good. They have not really had a slump. They've maintained that 3 seed. Their offense is pretty much unguardable when Sabonis and Fox and their shooters have it going. They are a real threat. This is not just going to be a team that's fake and gets blown out in the first round and we forget about them.
No, and like think about how valuable whatever happens in the playoffs for them is going to be. Like if they get the 2 seed and get a chance to like advance out of the first round against a lesser opponent, maybe they like get the like. Can we get Kings like if the Lakers can like put it together enough and they did just beat the Warriors? AD was great. Give me Kings Lakers round 1.
Of the last time they were in the playoffs too, which is brutal.
And like, hey, it's like, hey, you made the playoffs, Kings. You have to deal with LeBron. You have to deal with AD. Like, let's go. Like, that would be great. Like, that would be great for them. That would be really great for them. As hard as that would be, and as like palpitation inducing that would, I'm sure that would be for Kings fans. Like, that would be, I think, a really great thing for De'Aaron Fox and these guys to go through. I also like really like this team, Brendan, in part because like Mike Brown gave this interview recently to Chris Herring at Sports Illustrated where he talked about like the defense and like he's like, we're trying, and it's like I know knowing Mike Brown. And like knowing what he's about as a basketball coach, I'm sure the defense being like 25th is just absolutely killing him. It's killing him inside.
I'm crazy. Sure it's kind of with Thibodeau too, though, with the Knicks. They're like an all offense team with the defensive coach.
And it's just like that's maybe the era we're in, and like the kind of centers these teams have, at least in the Kings case. But like they've been awesome, and like we talked a lot and like there's been a lot of discussion about SGA and how he's killed it despite like not being like a really really plus 3-point shooter. Fox is kind of a version of that too. He's not like super high volume. He's never going to be like 35, like 36, 37% from 3. He's like doing a lot of his work this year, having like a by far career high number on 2s and like really doing his damage in there and like embracing that that's part of his game. We have this air, like he's doing that with the speed and all that. He's been obviously like statistically like the most clutch player in the league. Like he's going to probably win that award that I don't remember the name of. Like he's been awesome in the clutch. This team's great. I hope they get a 2. I think them getting a 2 seed would be like just a ton of fun. And like give me King, like let's pull up. I got to pull up the standings and look like who's in the play-in. And like it's obviously subject to change because the West is just like a bloodbath of changing seeds
right
in the
now,
way that the
Mavs,
East is
Clippers,
like
Jazz, Pelicans.
A little bit less so. But that team's great. Give me all the King stuff possible.
The thing that I'm focused in on right now with them is Keegan Murray. He's shooting 43% from the field since February 1st. He's kind of hit that rookie wall a little bit, and and they're worse with him on the court on the season. He's a rookie. He's a feel-good story. He's overachieved, making that pick look better than we thought it would look, all that good stuff. But when you're talking about the playoffs, the stories and the better than expected doesn't really cut it. And if they don't have him, they're even smaller. Trey Lyles is kind of their only reliable like forward option. He's very slow and not super athletic, so there's some series that he can't play. I think if they got certain matchups, I think could pose them problems, like the Timberwolves, for instance. I think with Gobert and Towns' size, Anthony Edwards just driving to the basket, that even could pose some problems. Like they're going to have to kind of get the right team too, but I do think if it's Dallas or the Clippers and it's just who's scoring 150, I do think they could be competitive in a series like that.
I opened up Twitter for a second and someone pointed out the clip of Chris Paul noticing that the Mavericks only had 4 players at the one point, and he's like counting. I love Chris Paul. I'm sorry to not talk about the Kings,
idea of,
but I like opened up Twitter to see
the idea of that game and the level of stress and craziness, and we're all like catching our breath from watching it, and he's able to notice there's only 4 guys on the court. With everything else that's going through his mind, it's exactly what makes Chris Paul a pain in the ass, but also the most fun player in the league.
I love him forever. I aspire to like have that amount of organization in my life in that way. But shout out to the Keegan Murray thing is a really good shout, just because he has had like a really interesting rookie year in terms of his 3-point shooting and the profile of what it would seem to indicate he's going to be as an NBA player, right? But it is also just like, okay, like is it going to be good enough like for him to get to go through some of this stuff? And I almost would like want Mike Brown to ride it out with him to some degree.
Yeah,
just
I
to
think
be like,
you
hey,
start
like,
him, right? Like
get the reps.
You keep starting him unless it's like a game 7 and you really need to adjust or whatever. But you know, I just think that he might not close.
But even then, like,
it might
but
just
even
have to
then,
be something where if you really like, because that's the thing. I don't know. I'm willing to hold the Kings to a little bit of a higher standard than like, really great job, everybody. Like, you know, the little kid with the orange slices.
Yeah.
Like they want to win the first round, and like they're gonna have to do different things to win that. Like, I don't think it's. I don't know. If I'm a Kings fan, I'm not sitting there like, all right, good time, guys. Let's go home. We'll see whatever happens next year.
No, absolutely not. I mean, like, I can tell you, Cavs fans don't feel that way if they like get Donovan Mitchell. Exactly, you know what I mean? Like, they don't feel that way. Well, and like, who would have thought on our NBA like season bingo card that like the Sacramento Kings would be much more likely to get out of the first round and like get this playoff experience than the freaking Pelicans?
Yeah.
And here we are. Not to be like a dick to the Pelicans, but
man, let's just hope we see Zion this season. I think with the Pelicans. But no, the point about Fox with the twos is super interesting. It's a little different because it's like he's doing it because he's just not good at making threes. He's still taking them.
And he doesn't have like the same like body control footwork kind of thing that Shea does, but it's like he's absolutely like, but he's like, he gets runners, he gets it on the break, like he's like one of the most dynamic, like speedy, like the speed he unlocks with some of that stuff is just, and
he
like,
can get to his spot, right? It's not just like beating you to the basket. It's like he's beating you to where he wants to go, rather than just I'm gonna go try to dunk it on your head, which felt like the reputation he had before this season, and now it's like, oh no, he can stop on a dime too and get to that elbow and make the shot and get to the rim if he needs to and whatever. He's a super. He's gonna score 30 plus, I think, in the first round. You know, like that's legit.
Last Kings thing I have for you is All NBA third team center. We obviously know one first team is going to be Embiid, the other one is going to be, and second team will be Jokic or vice versa, probably depending on who wins MVP. Is Sabonis third team All NBA center? Is like that would he be like the favorite for that right now? Is it Bam? Is it like, is there another candidate?
It's probably those two. I would have to look deeper statistically, but my instinct would be Sabonis. Mostly because of team success.
Yeah,
you know, it's
I agree.
If they're pretty close, they're very different players, but if they're pretty close in terms of their case, then I'm going to default to, well, what you did mattered more because it resulted in winning. And it's not like the Kings have some great roster compared to Miami. I mean, you know, they're both like middling talent teams. They're very good, but not, you know, elite. So I would go Sabonis.
Well, yeah, I would too. And like the team success thing I think should matter. And like even just for the construct of this podcast, Brendan, it's like we put the Kings in here. We did not put the Miami Heat in here.
Exactly. Yeah, well, the Kings have been winning games and the Heat have not. So, all right, that was our crystal ball. I think all these teams could win a first-round series, if not more. So that was kind of why we wanted to dive into the middle. But that'll wrap us up. Hit follow or subscribe wherever you're finding the show. 5 stars. Give us a nice review on Apple. All that good stuff. We're also on social media wherever you are. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of it. And we will talk to you guys later this week.
Peace out.